So yes, today we're going to be talking about the role of a father, raising sons and daughters with strength and purpose. Because we're going to be diving into our role as a father and what God calls us to be, how to lead, and how to intentionally raise our children in today's world. Ephesians 6:4 says, "Fathers, do not provoke your child to anger, but to bring them up in discipline and instruction of the Lord." So the biblical role of a father, the obvious, is the protector, be a provider, or essentially be a priest. Are we discipling? And we got to be the head of the household. We have to be the king of our domain. Proverbs 22:6, "Train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it." So if we have sons, a boy will grow to repeat what he saw in his father. If he saw strength, discipline, love, and leadership, he will repeat it. If he saw weakness, passivity, or anger, he will repeat that. Daughters, a daughter will grow to accept what she witnessed in her father or how he treated her mother. If she saw strength with kindness, protection, and leadership, she will seek that. If she saw emotional instability, weakness, or neglect, she will accept that as normal. And we have to acknowledge that when I say things like statistically your child will have the exact same marriage as you, it doesn't necessarily indicate that you're going to be your father or your daughter's going to be their mother. You could end up being your mother and, the male version. Or your daughter could end up being her father, but the female version. We're going to take on one of our parents' identities. Or we're going to take on, half of one and half of the other. And it's not always just the good parts. So in fatherhood, we have to lead by example. Your actions matter more than your words. Our children are visually learning everything that we do. They mimic us. They fall. They look to us to see the reaction. When they're climbing up a tree or over the couch the first time, they're looking to us to see our reaction. They're looking for us for praise, for approval. We may think that they're not even listening, and they could be in the other room and they understand what it is that we are doing. We have to be having intentional conversations. How often do we talk to our children about faith? How often are we talking to our children about values and life? If we do not instill culture in our household, a culture will be instilled even if we do not like it. We discipline with love and strength. Do we know the difference between authority and authoritarianism? How is it that we are raising our children? Is it a household with an iron fist? Or is it a household of, we are grooming them to be the man that we want them to be, that we know they can be, and the daughter that we know they can be? Are we encouraging clear milestones, ceremonies to mark a son's journey to manhood? None of us have ever had a ceremony to manhood. Culturally, we do not create milestones or ceremonies to manhood. It's just not a thing anymore. If you think of knights used to go through stages. They were a page and then a squire, and then they had to graduate to become a knight. And they were the most respected citizens of the land. If they did not honor their word, it was considered treason. The Native Americans, they had a rite of passage for boys to graduate into manhood. The Mongols had a rite of passage. The samurai had a rite of passage. There were intentional things that boys had to learn and accomplish in order to be a man. Today, we're just supposed to figure it out magically when we're over a certain age. And then time. Are we actually spending important quality time and actively being involved with our children? And I understand that there's challenges in parenting these days. You know, the world will attack the role of a father. Society tells us that the father is unnecessary. But the statistics are very clear and show otherwise, that the father literally has the most important long-term role in a child's life. It is very dangerous for us to be passive fathers. Again, if you look at the statistics of absent fathers, even a passive father, what is it that we're teaching? We're having our children be raised by their mother if we're being a passive father. And as important as mothers are, and I think they're extremely vital, more important than the father from the time that a child's born to the time that a child's 3. But after that, a father is the most important role model that a son or daughter will ever have. And if we're not doing it with intention, then we're essentially telling society, the school system, a culture that you may not even agree with, you're allowing that to raise your child. You know, we have, there's cultural influences like social media, identity confusion going on right now. That again is all because fathers are not actually raising their sons and daughters with intent. So if we look at Psalms 127, 3 through 5, children are a heritage from the Lord. So I want to open the floor for anyone to share any experiences, struggles, or questions. And let's just talk through those scenarios. Matt, since you don't have any current children, I'm sure there's some scenarios you can think of. Darnell, being a father for the last 8 years, there's some, I'm sure, experiences, struggles, questions. We've all been there. That makes total sense. And for anyone who's listening who's a single parent, we have to completely focus on what we can control ourselves. Like you were saying, come into that realization. It's great that you're progressing towards that mindset, because we can't control 100% of how we parent when we're with our child, if we're a single parent. And it only more pushes the fact that we need to be intentional throughout every aspect of our parenting. As the child gets older, they're going to understand the dynamics of the relationship without ever actually hearing, quote unquote, your side of anything. They're going to just recognize the difference in one spouse or another. It may take till they're 20 or 16, maybe even early as 14, but they will. Like, our children are not dumb. And our children will learn that there are rules at one house and they are different from another. And that we shouldn't have to worry about the rules in another because we can't control those, and focus on the rules in our own. And what you said, I think, is great, and just keep moving forward, brother. So what does the Bible say about worry? We always want to revert to the Bible. You know, it says, like, even in Matthew, it says, you know, Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. And then in Philippians, it says, do not be anxious about anything, but, pray. But it's these things that we can recite, remember, and allow it to get rid of our worry and anxiety. Because we are called to cast all of our anxiety on him because he cares for you. That's Peter 5:7. It's a direct command to give your worries to God. So, and there's a lot more in the Bible about like our worry and our mind, in Philippians, even in Isaiah. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. And then Matthew 8:26, you of little faith, why are you so afraid? Proverbs, anxiety weighs down the heart, but a kind word cheers it up. Psalms is, cast your cares on the Lord and he will sustain you. He will never let the righteous be shaken. And one of the reasons why I bring these up is, what good does it do us to waste energy, like in the last two that I read, in regards to those worries, when we can actually just parent with intent and have the confidence that we will do the best possible thing for our children, and then God has his eye out for them as they grow into an adult. No, I mean, don't get me wrong. Here's the thing. I used to go out to my grandmother's and I used to go catch lizards and horny toads when I was like 7. All the time. And we would be way out into the desert in the middle of nowhere. And I think about it now, and I want my kids to do the exact same thing. And then there's this little thing in the back of my head of, what if they fucking get bit by a rattlesnake? Like, how am I going to get to them quick enough to then take them to the hospital? I never even fucking saw a rattlesnake in all my years hunting lizards and horny toads. Never saw one once. Nothing bad ever happened. But does that mean I prevent them from doing this? Do I actually wallow in this worry while they're out in the desert looking for lizards? While they're 2 miles away from my house because they're just in the middle of the mountains. And it's like, no, I actually rid that of my mind as quickly as it comes, because I want them to grow up to be resilient and be willing to take on all obstacles, and me not hover over them due to a worry that is most likely an anomaly. Because when you said the one thing about if your son grew up to be, a puff, it's like, well, that's an anomaly. It really is. So how do we just focus on making him the baddest motherfucker there is, who puts his faith in Jesus? Because there's a higher probability of you raising the strongest, most violent, capable, and peaceful, loving man than him growing up to be that. Yeah, and even on this call, what we're talking about, if we are parenting intentionally, then it should just wash those worries away. Well, so I guess when I talk about intentional, I mean literally a plan. Because we can look at these, we can't look inside their homes of what else is going on in the examples you're giving me. We actually don't know. We only know the outside of what we see that they present in public, right? unless it's like our best friend and we like were over there all the time and we really saw how their parents interacted with one another. You know, we all might have that one family that it's like we really know how they were because we are around them so much. But with that, how many fathers actually, when I say intentional, I mean they have a 1, 3, 5, 10-year plan with their son of they're going through that rite of passage, just like how the knights, you were literally a page when you were 7. And then from 7 to 12, you were, or when you became 7, sorry, you started to be a page. And you intentionally were discipled. You had a mentor who was specifically teaching you skills and how to act. And then from 10 to 14, you were a squire. Now that means you are essentially working for a knight, and he taught you a whole nother level of things. And you literally had to graduate that. It's completely different from graduating in elementary school because that is a societal thing of passing a test. It has nothing to do with manhood. So anyone's like, well, I mean, our kids graduate elementary school, they graduate high school and college. It's like, well, that has zero to do with being a man. That has zero to do with being a woman and a respectable woman. So, well, yeah, and even at home, how many of us, and do we actually even know of someone whose father had a rite of passage in separate stages that they intentionally brought us through and how they brought us up with intention to graduate into manhood? I'm going to say it's zero. Now, may our father have been a good guy and he was there when we had a question. Was he there for us on the weekends? Did he take us to baseball at night? But how was his intention of intentionally raising us versus mom raising us when we look back? You know, what obstacles did he intentionally put us through so that we had to suffer in order to be resilient to learn a specific lesson? I'm still going to go with it's zero. Fathers weren't doing that. So when I talk about intention, that's what I mean. I mean intention of you're building a home, you have to grade a pad, you have to drill a well, you have to lay that pad, then you're going to, you got your foundation. Okay, now you're doing this. And before that, it was all engineered and architect. You had the plans laid out. And then there's an approval process, right? Someone comes and has to approve those and put a stamp. In our case, it's your brotherhood of like-minded men going, I think that's fucking excellent, or you're forgetting this. You don't even have a fucking bathroom in this house that you've designed. And it's like, oh shit, I totally forgot. Or you know what? You need a utility room that's 8 by 8 in that house. And it's like, why do I need an 8 by 8 utility room? If anything goes wrong, you can actually address every situation in a utility room. You're not crawling under the house. You don't have to go on the side of the house for this other thing, So that's what I mean by intention. How is it we are setting them up for success? Because there are levels. And I'm talking about the most intentional level that our son comes back one day and is like, you know what? And they're an adult in this side, in this example. And they're like, I owe you everything. You are forever one of my best friends. Not because he has a lack of a brotherhood, but because he sees that we set them up for success. Not because we left them with an inheritance of $1 million, but because of the skills that we taught them that we were not taught. Because too many men go through life and say there's no handbook for being a husband and there's no handbook for being a father, which is a fucking lame excuse, because we need to be creating those handbooks and handing them to them along their life and setting them up. But instead, that same man who says that there's no handbook leaves his son and daughter with no handbook instead of actually intentionally creating one. I agree. I don't know how much it is to truly be a man, but these respected families, I do believe that there's an aspect of that with it. And it's like, how do we do the same thing? Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. And it's what we need to also instill. We need to be that deciding factor for our family tree to not go the way that our parents did. It's like, yes, we thank them. They did it how they did it. We're not going to hold anything against them. You know, we're just still going to love and respect them because they are our parents. But we have to take it up freaking 10 notches. And at one point in time, men did this. Men literally did what we're talking about, and then it had slowly fade away. Because if you didn't do it, your son wouldn't survive. If you didn't do it, he wouldn't carry on your wealth. He wouldn't carry on your skills. Remember, like a blacksmith's son became a blacksmith. And they were so good at running that blacksmith business because they were integrated into that blacksmith business at one time. Think about the Knight and the Page. If you think about the Spartans, they literally had the agoge where they would take sons from their mothers and teach them various skills. And then when they would graduate to weapons skills, and they would graduate again. Throughout history, some of the most badass societies and thriving societies had a rite of passage. They parented with intent. Today, we do not do that. We solve our child's problems, so then they don't learn anything, and it creates anxiety for them because we set them up in the world where they're unsure. We want to make life as easy on them as possible. No suffering. You know, we don't create adversity. We don't pair it with intent. And then we expect them to just like, one day it's just your man. And we got to just break the cycle. Everyone on this call, everyone in this group. Any last questions, comments, or concerns? And then I'll let you guys enjoy your weekend. But yeah, and that's exactly why I do this school community, because I wanted to create a brotherhood where we comfortably bounce these ideas off one another. Hey, so-and-so, you got sons, what are you doing? Here, my wife's 7 months pregnant, man, I gotta dial this in. And again, you can always renegotiate a contract. You can always check and adjust your plan. But let's not wait till it's too late to try to come up with one. And again, the community part is, hey, what do you think of this plan? What do you think of this? Here's how I want to parent my son. What does everybody think? Getting on calls like this, getting in the chat, and everyone putting in their input. Because it's like, if we all have that same goal, then we all have each other's best interest. All right, so it sounds like I'm leaving you guys both with something to think about.